You're locked on to Scotty G and the coach, Tim LaComb. Presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Scott Gerard, the coach, Tim LaComb. All right, so much going on in the world of college athletics that doesn't actually even involve athletics, but to help make sense of it all, Bill Bender from the Sporting News, kind enough to hang out with us. Bill, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Always good to catch up. All right, so does this bill saving college athletics? Does it? It seems like it was dead. Now we might have a pulse again. What's the latest?
Yeah, I think Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti breathed some life into it, so to speak. You know, with the talk that Greg Sankey and him are actively involved, trying to work through some changes to it. I mean, I think piece by piece, some of those reforms will come to college football. But I mean, if you're asking me to predict the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives and everything that goes on, and I won't be doing that today. I have no clue on that. But, yeah, definitely gaining some momentum.
We have crystal balls around here. We'll send you one, and it may aid in your ability to do so. So, obviously, the timing is really important to get this to the floor. And I did hear the comments of the Big Ten commissioner today. I think we all know this is headed toward a super league at some point. But the climate today with all of the revenue and everything else, to me it seems as though this street could run out of room. I feel like we're up against it in this wild era of college football.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right? Like we opened Pandora's box, and this is what happened. And when you have all these streams, whether it's the portal or eligibility or NIL, and trying to, somebody's got to pay for all of it. And I always say, college football is one of the sports governed by emotion. You have coaches that get fired for losing a couple games. We fired James Franklin and Brian Kelly last year in the middle of the season, and Lane Kiffin left one school for another. So when you hear the phrase Wild Wild West, there's some validity to it. So I think, like I said, piece by piece, to me, it still starts with the calendar. You fix the calendar, you fix eligibility, you try to find a way to deter student athletes from entering the portal at the rate they're entering it. And then you get into the finances. I mean, but unless you think the finances are going to run out first. So, piece by piece, I think we can fix all of it.
Is there a way that look, anybody negotiates anything, whether it's a house, a car, or whatever the case is, you're always going to feel like you gave up something. But the Big Ten and the SEC are such the big dogs in this thing that they're not in a position, or they're not willing to give up much. What are the one or two things that they are really sticking their heels in the ground in and saying, we're not budging on this?
Well, the rules part needs to get clarified. Like, is everybody operating on the same rules? I think, the Big Ten, at least from listening to Tony Petitti today, it seemed like their focus is more on the playoffs and trying to expand this playoff to 24 teams. That's an entirely different discussion from all of the things in the Protect Sports College Act. They are very into access and getting more teams involved, losing the conference championship games, and speaking from a podium where Tony Petitti spoke today next to 3 trophies. So when you have those trophies like they have in the last 3 years, there's a little bit more incentive to speak in that manner. So, and he did promote the rivalry with the SEC, but I think it really comes down to the SEC and the Big Ten, how much they're going to agree to and how much they're going to influence and shape some of this legislation.
We heard today another patch announced. This actually a couple. Ohio State came out with they had an hour of gloating, and then Notre Dame came in over the top. But finding ways to revenue. You talked about paying for things, but the ability to name stadiums and do the patch thing. You think that's a positive thing in that direction?
It doesn't matter if you think it's positive or negative. It's coming. I mean, as soon as I get off the phone here, I have to throw out my editor's 5 patch suggestions for schools in college football, and people may click on it. Like one I threw out right away is like Michigan. Just go get the Ford patch.
There you go.
Gerald Ford played there, so that's an easy one. Boston College, go get your Dunkin' Donuts patch and go from there. So I think they're coming, and as much as the old school part of me is like kind of just rolls your eyes a little bit, it's part of the reality now. I remember they did this with NFL with the training camp jerseys, right? Wasn't there a Tom Brady jersey with like Gillette as the patch on the preseason, whatever. So it's part to raise this money that I'm talking about. Somebody's got to pay for all these things.
When you look at actual football and you look at the potential of what this season's going to look like, there's a lot of people fired up here, certainly with BYU on the upswing with a returning quarterback. You got the University of Utah now with new leadership, but obviously a culture and a tradition of winning there. In that Big 12 race now, with the Sorsby stuff all kind of figured out, do you still look at Texas Tech as the big dog in that conference, or do you look at BYU right there with them, if not ahead of them?
Well, I think I like that. I think the Big 12 has a tier of 4 teams that I look at: Utah, BYU, Texas Tech, Houston this year. That's kind of my top tier, and I can find reasons to like all 4 of them, right? Like, I know Utah had a coaching switch, but still like the quarterbacks. Really do. Like the roster. BYU, like the quarterback, like the running back, LJ Martin, and their defense. Texas Tech, even with Will Hammond and the talent that they have, they'll be able to put up a fight. And Houston's kind of that sleeper to me. Not really a sleeper when you won 10 games last year, which they did. So, and the schedule plays a role, right? Like Texas Tech, if I'm not mistaken, I've heard this a couple times, but they don't play BYU or Utah. So if they beat Houston in week 3, they've got a pretty good shot to get all the way to Jerry World and play in that Big 12 championship game.
I saw an article today. Everybody's bored. You're doing the patch thing. Somebody released a simulation from College Football 27 that had, of all people, Boise State winning the national championship. Go figure. But I know that's probably not going to happen. But do you have a couple dark horses, teams that maybe aren't being talked about a bunch that have a chance to make some noise in December?
I mentioned Louisville a couple times over the summer. I like what they have with the running game. Lincoln Kienholz transferring in from Ohio State. Cleb Lubin, one of the best defensive players in the country that nobody's really talking about. You look at his pass rush numbers, they're incredible. I think they're one in the ACC that could make some noise, along with SMU, who isn't, they've competed in that conference the last 2 years. I think in the Big 12, tough to say. I like that top tier a little bit more. Washington in the Big 10's an interesting roster around Damon Williams. They've won a lot of big games. It's just, can they win a couple big ones when they play at Michigan or an Ohio State? They definitely play Penn State this year. That'll be a big game. So I think those are a couple teams that actually stick out.
So obviously there might be some people here keeping an eye on University of Michigan. What do you expect out of Kyle Whittingham's crew this year?
Well, they'll be on the podium Thursday, and I think Kyle Whittingham's going to have to answer a lot of questions about things that didn't even happen when he was there, which I don't envy him on the podium or the breakout session tomorrow. But I think Kyle's going to do a fantastic job. The Big Ten Network commentators, Jerry DiNardo, Howard Griffith, Dave Revison, it's kind of crazy to think that that's been around for 20 years, but they've been very complimentary of Kyle Whittingham today. I think they know he brings a seriousness to the program. The big question is what Jason Beck does with Bryce Underwood, 5-star talent, huge NIL deal, and can they get the most out of him for the next season or the next 2 seasons and get him on a progression where he would be a first-round type quarterback? Because Michigan's going to need that. They'll be able to run the football and be physical. Kyle Whittingham does that all the time, and that's Michigan's DNA anyway. But can they have that quarterback development around it? That would be the difference maker against a tough schedule.
You mentioned Kyle Whittingham. We talked about Morgan Scalley. Any other first-year coaches out there in new spots that you feel like, like we heard a bunch about Colin Klein at Big 12 Media Days and how he may really be able to help Avery Johnson. Any other first-year coaches you feel like have kind of landed in a good situation, might be able to do some good things right out of the gate?
I like Colin Klein. I like Eric Morris, too, at Oklahoma State. Landing Drew Mestemaker and Caleb Hawkins. Caleb Hawkins had 25 rushing touchdowns last season. So how does that carry over from North Texas to the Big 12? We'll see. But I like the pieces. I like Matt Campbell. He was on the podium today. Not a guy that's going to generate a lot of attention on social media. And sometimes that's a good thing. He knows how to coach a program. Brought a bunch of those Iowa State guys. You've seen him up close. Great program builder. good fit for Penn State and what they're trying to do. So those are a couple that stands out. Maybe a little bit less, and he'll be on the podium tomorrow. Pat Fitzgerald, good to see him back in college football and what he might be able to do at Michigan State this year.
Yeah, I like that hire a lot for sure. If you had to your preseason Heisman poll, who are your 2 or 3 guys you're looking at?
Well, I mean, that's fluid. That changes first week, but I mean, it's really a quarterback award, and you look at some of the top quarterbacks, whether it's Arch or Trinidad Chambliss, who is our top quarterback at Sporting News heading into the season. C.J. Carr's getting a lot of hype. Those are the 3 that stand out. And then, that ignores Julian Sayin, who's the only returning Heisman finalist at Ohio State, and Jeremiah Smith, who might be the best player in college football that he's throwing to. So I think you really start your list with those 5, and then you kind of move your way around to like a Darian Mensah and some of the other names on the list.
I've seen you've written a bunch of great articles. You wrote one about Arch Manning a bit ago. Talk about Arch Manning at Texas and what he's got to do to get off the ground there and get some things going.
Well, I thought he was great in the second half. The progression I've envisioned for Arch Manning is kind of what's unfolded. He started his career last year, full-time starter, goes to Ohio State, plays a defense that was just legendary, and everybody's down on him. Has a terrible game at Florida, and then we're calling him a bust. And he turned around second half of the season, played really good football. So I just think you're going to see more improvement. Is he, Peyton and Eli put together with Archie on the side? No, but I think he'll continue to develop as a really good quarterback, and that Texas roster is loaded. He's got a ton of skill position talent around him with Cam Coleman, the 2 running backs, Raleek Brown, Hollywood Smothers, tight end strong. So if the offensive line holds up, Texas is going to be very, very good this season. And I think that puts the pressure on Sark to push the team through, right?
Well, that's
Sark more than Arch to me, because I think Arch is going to face all that at the NFL.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that because you have that loaded talent, you have that expectation. I'm sure Texas paid dearly for that roster. I got to imagine that's a bit of a warm seat there in Austin.
Oh, I mean, for sure, and I think obviously Texas is. I don't know if it's a hot seat, but he has been to the semifinals 2 of the last 3 years. If they don't make a run this year, and he's sitting here this time of year making the case of why they should have made the playoff, which I'm kind of on board with their case from last year at 9-3 because they played Ohio State, but it's still Texas. Nobody's ever going to feel sorry for Texas not getting in the playoff. In fact, the rest of the college football world really likes piling on them whenever they can, given the resources. But I think it's definitely an opportunity for him to do that.
So, including, I guess we talked about Sark a little bit. Who's got the hottest seat in college football in your mind?
Well, I'd say Mike Norvell's up there. Obviously Florida State coming off back-to-back losing seasons since, they were snubbed from the playoff a couple years ago. So they're one that definitely, are going to want to have better results this season. Bill Belichick, with the news that broke yesterday on Lombardi, it's been a mess. There has been very few positive headlines to write out of North Carolina the last couple of years, but I think that's one that's going to get a lot of attention.
Oh yeah, that's an ugly one there, and it just goes to show you that just because you may have been able to do it at the professional ranks doesn't mean it's going to translate to the collegiate ranks. It's just been a monumental disaster, and I don't know how you separate yourself from Bill Belichick if you're North Carolina. Maybe this stuff with Mike Lombardi helps you a little bit, but if I'm North Carolina, I don't know how I can essentially part ways with this guy.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. And I think if you're lucky, if they don't make the progress that you're anticipating them to make, and to me that means 5 or 6 wins. You got to be better than 4 and 8. You got to look better doing it. Maybe Belichick retires. Maybe there's a parachute that way. But I don't want to say stuck with him, but I think Bill can dig in a little bit and try to be successful. So, yeah, it's a big year for them, and I want to see them succeed. I don't actively root for people to fail. So, but I just think it's a really big ask, and they need to have some positivity. And it starts. We're all going to be watching the opener again when they play TCU in Dublin.
How much are people keeping an eye on the Stanford unionization story and seeing if that has legs?
Well, they should keep an eye on it because obviously college football, I mean, it's headed in that direction. I've said for a couple of years now that I think there should be some unionization. There should be those kind of things where the student athletes have a voice when they're making the money. That's one missing piece here. It's like, do you think the NFL would exist without an NFLPA right now? Of course not. So when there's that much money on the table and that much money to be had and talk of salary caps, and not to mention these kids are going to college. I mean, you forget about that piece of it, right?
Are they really?
That these kids actually go to college and have to go to classes. And, you know, what's that look like moving forward? And I think certainly should be paid attention to because it's coming to the sport.
All right, so I'm going to make you commissioner of college football for 1 minute. What's the first rule you change, structural rule change that gets things starting to look a little more like we're used to? Is it the transfer thing?
The schedule. No, the schedule. I would say in 1 minute I would move signing day up before the season so they can sign before the season so it's not during the playoff. I would punch the season back a week so we start earlier in August and punch the playoff up if I can. I know the logistics are what they are, but I would go to 16 teams. I'd play the first 2 rounds on campus, and I'd get us out by January 9th so you're not being interfered with the NFL playoffs. Because to me, that you're never going to win that battle.
You're hired.
Let's go.
That'd be great.
That was a 1 minute interview. You're hired.
Done and done. Hey, Bill, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully we'll be able to catch up soon.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me on. Take care, guys.
There he is, senior writer, Sporting News, Bill Bender, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top.
Your medical freedom is worth protecting. That's why Jace is offering massive savings on life-saving medications this July. Enjoy membership to Jace Plus for just $17.76 for the entire year, where you'll receive ongoing discounts and 24/7 access to a first aid helpline all year round. You'll also find special pricing on the Jace Case, Jace Trauma, ivermectin, and more medical tools to keep you and your loved ones emergency ready. The sale ends July 31st. Visit jace.com, that's JASE.com, to learn more and save on peace of mind.